Okay, good afternoon again to everyone. Thank you for taking time to join us for FINMA Corporation's analyst briefing. I am Cara Albert from FINMA Corporation, and I will be your moderator for today. So before I introduce our speakers, allow us to share with you this short audiovisual presentation.
Most enlightened businesses now believe that the business of business, of course, is still making profits, but also has to do with uplifting the lives of people. That is why in FINMA, we have chosen to invest in businesses and in communities where our businesses have the ability to enable the communities to achieve the essentials of a dignified life. It's the whole idea of doing good while doing well.
Proud ako maging mag-aaral ng PHINMA kasi alam kong ihahanda nila kami para magkatrabaho agad at makatulong sa pamilya at bansa.
Ibang saya ko na mabigyan ng aking family ng safe home in a nice community. Dahil sa PHINMA, ang dating dream, naging reality.
Alam ko sa PHINMA, matatag ang trabaho ko kasi kaya nilang harapin ang pagsubok. Alam kasi nila na maraming pamilya ang umaasa sa amin.
Basta't nagbakasyon kami, alam kong magiging relax ako kung sa microtel or trip kami ng pamilya. Enjoy ang bonding.
So one of the things that we've decided to do is empower the younger generations of FINMA employees and officers to carry this mission and embrace it as their own because there is so much more that remains to be done. But the other part of this is trying to engage the rest of the business community to become active partners in this effort. We cannot do this alone. This is a whole of society approach. Business really has to come together. And for this, FINMA has been willing to be a leading voice in business for good, business for social good, business for uplifting the lives of our people. We really need to push on through our younger generations of future FINMA leaders who will hopefully carry on the task with the same degree of passion and commitment. That's what I'm hoping FINMA will be known for and FINMA will be remembered for.
So for this afternoon, I am joined by none other than Mr. Peace Brion, our Group CFO, and Mr. EJ Kwak-Hansen, our Deputy Group CFO. Mr. Brion will be giving an overview of the different businesses under FINMA Corporation's umbrella, as well as the financial updates. Following that, EJ will be going into more detail on the strategic business units and will also be sharing the outlook. So please note that the presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. If you have any questions, we encourage you to make use of the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen so that your queries can be addressed in an orderly manner. Please also be advised that we will be recording this session. So without further ado, let me turn over the floor to Mr. Brion.
Thank you, Cara. Good afternoon again to all our friends and bankers and investors. Today, what we'd like to do is explain in a little more detail what the fundamentals of our business is. FINMA's business is to do good and do well. And that's the way we will do our business. We want you to have 3 takeaways this afternoon. Number 1, that we do business to do good. Our businesses are designed to make lives better for the Filipino people, for all our customers to have access to the essentials of a dignified life. In doing so, in doing good, our business is profitable, and we'd like you to keep that in mind. Even when you do good, you can do well in business. And the third point that I'd like you to be able to take away is there's a long runway for growth in doing good business in the Philippines. We still have more than 6 million Filipino students who cannot afford college education. There are more than 3 million of the low to mid-income families who are still wanting to have a house that they can afford. And as you know, there are trillions worth of infrastructure projects that have been approved and have been lined up. And this is where we have focused our businesses in. No? So we have 3 businesses: education, construction materials, and shelter. In education, we provide accessible quality college education to Filipinos who cannot afford the same kind of education that they can get, for example, in the higher universities in Manila. And it's accessible because for 1/4 of the cost of going to a university in downtown Manila, they could finish a 4-year course in a PHINMA school. That is how low the cost is. And for those who can still not afford that kind of cost, they're given tuition breaks via scholarship of up to 50%. Now, when we say quality education, as you see in the students, they look smart. We build their confidence. We build up their competency in writing, reading, and arithmetic from their grade 4 level when they enter college to an accomplished state where they can finish with high probability and finish and obtain their licensure, and soon enough get employed within months of graduation. That is the focus of our education. So you'll see some of our schools as we go through these pictures. In the next slide, you'll see the new San Jose City campus of Arroyo University, located in Nueva Ecija. Then this is the new campus in Iligan for Cagayan de Oro colleges. And then next slide, you will see the new building of the Rizal College of Laguna in Calamba. And then you will see the new dentistry building of Southwestern University in Cebu. These buildings are put up to accommodate an increasingly higher enrollment that we've experienced the last 3 years. We also run a university, by the way, in Indonesia, in Karawang. It's called the Horizon University. Our second business is construction materials. We produce high-strength cement in Vietnam, which we'll see for the first time in the next slide. This is the cement plant of Song Lam, where we have a minority investment. This is one of the most modern cement plants in Vietnam, possibly in the region. And it is a very cost-efficient plant that can very well beat the most cost-efficient plant in the Philippines. They export cement to as many as 38 countries, including the USA in the West Coast. From this plant, we bring cement to our Mariveles terminal. In Mariveles, we process the cement and we distribute them by sea to the different ports from Luzon to Visayas to Mindanao. It's a competitive advantage in terms of distribution cost because we can transport cement, which is bulky, faster and more cheaply by sea compared to our inland competitors. In UGC, we produce flat sheets. Flat sheets means metal sheets that are converted into roof, into other building components like joists, wall panels, as well as insulated panels that are used for cold storage, meat processing plants, even poultry farms. That is the kind of extensive use that we have for flat sheets. And we've been in this business for 60 years now. Our competitive advantage here is the wide distribution network of Union Galva, which we will show you later in the geographical footprint of the businesses. Now, apart from roofing that we produce in Union Galva Steel, we also introduced the solar panels for our commercial and agribusiness customers. This is to help them save on per power costs. We also, of course, provide a solar roof for our residential customers. This year, PHINMA Solar was the first awardee of a solar-powered, rooftop-powered solar panel under the Green Energy Auction Program of the country. We are contracted to provide power from 9.4 megawatt peak capacity in several rooftops located around the country. In shelter, our third business, we're involved both in housing and hotels. So you see here different ongoing projects. Metrotown is in Las Piñas, Uniplace is in Cebu, PHINMA Maayo Tugbok is in Davao, and PHINMA Maayo is San Jose is in Batangas. And in the next slide, the kind of facilities that we build really support a happy, healthy, and secure community. And you will see that in the kind of facilities that we provide, especially in, this is located in San Jose and Batangas. And this is typical of the communities that we build, whether they're MRBs or horizontal communities like Maayo. By the way, PHINMA Property is the original propagator of the MRB condominiums, when condominiums was still not accessible to the mid-income families in Metro Manila. We started way back in the 90s. And in hotels, PHINMA Corporation owns a significant stake in the two flagship hotels located in the Mall of Asia, the Microtel and Trip. PHINMA Microtel Hotels is the master franchisee of Microtel and Trip of Widham in the Philippines. We run about 14 hotels around the country, both for ordinary leisure and conferences, but also for hotels located in business parks like the one in UP Techno Hub and the one that is located in South Forbes, located in Santa Rosa. We also have hotels located in resort areas like Boracay, as well as Baguio. So those are our hotels. Altogether, when you look at the geographical location, our operation spans from the north of Luzon all the way to southern Mindanao. We have 9 schools in the Philippines, located in 16 campuses all over the country. We have a total enrollment in this current school year of 146,000, up from about 125,000 from the school year 22-23. In construction materials, we have 29 plants and warehouses all over the country. So they have the most number of colored spots there in the map. Our Mariveles terminal is 2 million tons in capacity, which is the largest of its kind in the world. Our metal sheet capacity has reached almost 10 million sheets, and our locations allow us to deliver to customers within 48 hours of order. In the shelter business, PHINMA Properties has 25 communities. Many of them are in Manila, but also on Cebu and Davao. And now they're building, as I said, in Batangas. And there are plans to build a community in Negros and sometime in the near future also in Laguna. In the hotels, we have 700 rooms located in 14 different areas. So we cover many parts of the country, we think that, for example, for schools, there are still locations in the country that need to be accessed by our schools. Now, for the financial highlights, in the first half, let me give you some highlights for each SBU. Details of these financials can be discussed by our Deputy CFO. In education, enrollment for the first half was higher by 30%. This brought up revenues from 1.4 to 2.1 billion pesos in the first half, and income grew 3 times from 99 to 308 million. In construction materials, total revenues dipped a bit from 7 billion to about 6.6 billion on account of lower prices. Volume is about the same. And net income has come down from 443 million to 262 million, largely on account of cost remaining on the high side and prices being kept low by competition. And competition has tightened up with the reduced deployment of government funds for infrastructure and continuing softness in the private sector. But things have started to move more actively in the second half, as we have indicated already. For affiliates in housing and hospitality, the hotel side made good this year. They have turned around from losses during the COVID pandemic up to last year and registered an income of 22 million in the first half. PHINMA Properties, on the other hand, had increased reservations of about 16%, 619 units, but revenues dropped a bit on account of a decision to accelerate sales cancellation of in the amount of about 380 million. That resulted in a reduction of in operating income by 149 million, and therefore creating a loss for PHINMA Properties of 168 million in the first half. We do not worry about that because those cancellations, 77% of them have been resolved as of August, and as of August, PHINMA Property has started to earn its income. On a consolidated basis, PHINMA Corporation achieved consolidated revenues of 8.9 billion pesos, and net income stood at 456.7 million. We think that the best way to appreciate the financial performance of PHINMA is to look at it on a 5-year trend. Since 2019, please note that revenues have risen continuously from 11.3 billion in 2019 to an annualized 18 billion this year. Likewise, income, which have been always below 500 million before 2020, has now risen well above 500 million. And in the first half this year, we made 236 million. So this is a new level, and we hope that to increase this to a new level in the coming years. In the next slide, our total assets have increased by 50% from 22 billion in 2019 to close to 33 billion in 2023. Likewise with liabilities and with equity. But if you look at our financial position, we have maintained our current ratio to be at least 1.5. Our debt equity below 2:1 on a consolidated basis. Return on equity has risen to double digits. And while the first half reflects a single-digit return, we are confident that this will register a double digit by the end of the year. So I end my presentation at this point, and let me turn you over to our Deputy CFO, EJ Sen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brion, and thank you to everyone for joining us today and hearing a little bit more about PHINMA. Taking a step back, PHINMA is turning 67 years old this year. And if you look at our roots, it was really founded and predicated on how can we help build the country? How can we help the Philippines become the Philippines that we know it can become? And if you look at the composition of our portfolio in construction materials, shelter, and especially in education, we go back to our strengths on how we can accomplish this mission and how PHINMA can be a force for good. Looking at the composition of our portfolio today, despite the macroeconomic backdrop that we saw in the first half, we continue to remain optimistic in terms of our prospects, as Mr. Brian mentioned, looking at the longer term trends. In the next couple of slides, I'll explain why we're so optimistic. Starting off with education. Education, as everyone knows, is really a core need of Filipinos. If our country is really to progress towards the kind of country, again, that it should be, our citizens need good education. And by this, we mean education that leads to employment. That's why PHINMA Education is really a business that we're so proud of. And we're happy to share with everyone that in addition to doing good, as a company, it also does well. This slide here talks about the participation rate in education. What this participation rate shows is that compared to other countries, both in the region and globally, only 36% of Filipinos that should be in college are currently enrolled in higher education institutions. Even during the course of the pandemic, we saw people not shifting out of PHINMA education, but in fact, they shifted towards education because our education is focused on providing quality, accessible education that leads to employment. Around Southeast Asia, there's a gold standard for payback period where the tuition rate or the tuition that people pay should be paid back within a certain period of 18 months after graduation. I'm happy to report that within our schools, with the exception of one, most of our schools have a payback period within 1 year. And in fact, 82% of our students are able to find, or our graduates are able to find employment within 6 months of graduation. And you can see that in the next slide that those kinds of statistics, the things that we're able to do, the focus that we have on making lives better for our students has really reflected in our enrollment growth. Starting in 2004-2005, when we had one school with less than 6,000 students, today we're a network of 10 schools with more than 124,000 students last school year. But looking at this year's enrollment, we're probably expecting about 146,000 students. By the way, the 124,000 students already made us the largest network of tertiary education institutions in Southeast Asia, and we've added another 20% this school year. So again, we're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish and how we've been able to really expand our mission through education. What you've seen from school year 21-22 all the way up to the 146,000 this year is really mostly organic growth within the same schools. But we continue to look at how we can expand these schools so that we can reach more and more students and get that participation rate from 36% higher to where we think it should be. Next slide, please. But of course, in addition to the soft infrastructure, we've been able to see the strong growth here also financially. So from a PHINMA Corp perspective, education gives us a good baseline. The net income in our education business, as I said, has been improving. It was 153 million pesos attributable to PHINMA Corporation in the first half of this year. We've also seen an improvement in revenue over the last 4 years, and we continue to see and expect more revenue growth in the future, especially as we see enrollment starting to increase and continue to increase, rather. Next slide, please. So in addition to this, though, we also are positioned back in construction materials. Again, this is a business that we know very well. As you know, PHINMA is really considered one of the main drivers in construction materials growth here in the Philippines. It's a business that we have a lot of expertise on. But over the last few administrations, we've seen an emphasis on infrastructure development, which makes a lot of sense because in order for us to capture the demographic dividend that we're talking about in the Philippines, these citizens need to have strong infrastructure. And, you know, when we look around, the roads continue to need more repair. We need to link the archipelago better. We need to improve the airports. There's a lot of infrastructure, even in terms of the ports themselves. And so we continue to see a lot of growth in construction materials, in particularly cement, which is an industry that we're quite familiar with. We do see an oversupply situation in the Philippines, a lack of supply situation here in the Philippines. And so we've decided to re-enter that industry to bring that expertise of ours into play. Next slide, please. So if you look at our construction materials group, we really aim to be a one-stop shop. In 2017, our main business in construction materials was Union Galvasteel, which is our pre-painted galvanized iron and steel building products business. And it had this nationwide distribution network. But using that distribution network, giving us the knowledge of what's happening around the country, we really realized that there was a shortage of cement, and a shortage of cement that we could address with the help of our partners, both in Vietnam and in other countries. So tapping Union Galvasteel's distribution network, we re-entered the cement business. We inaugurated the Mariveles terminal in January of 2020. And in fact, that state-of-the-art facility is so good that it's been copied both in Australia and the United States since in our inauguration. I'm also happy to share that when we inaugurated the terminal, a lot of the former dealers that we had came back and were there. We've been dealing with, in some cases, 3 or 4 generations of a family that have been selling Union Cement their whole time. And so as a result of this, we've really seen strong revenue growth over the last 5 years. And we continue to expect construction materials to probably be PHINMA Corp's largest driver of revenue growth. But in addition to these two businesses, we also saw opportunities in solar rooftop because, again, PHINMA through UGC knows the roofing business and knows where the roofs are. We thought that we could provide additional value to our customers by providing them with solar rooftop generation solutions. And so we entered PHINMA Solar at that point in time. And that's another business that's continuing to grow to address the energy concerns of the Philippines. Next slide, please. So as you see from this slide on the left-hand side, revenue growth over the last 4 years has been very strong with a 3-year CAGR of 17%. We've also seen an increase in net income, although for the first half of this year, it's been a little bit down year on year. We do anticipate that this net income will recover somewhat in the second half as we see public construction spending increasing and improving in the half. Next slide, please. But overall, looking at the outlook for the group, I'll start with education. And education, again, is a business that once you have the enrollment, you see that enrollment filter down to the bottom line. It's very strong in terms of cash generation. Our enrollment, we're expecting to hit 146,000 students, but our education business and the people running it are very ambitious and want to see this continue to grow. Not just here in the Philippines, but also looking at additional acquisitions in Indonesia, and even other areas in Southeast Asia where we continue to see similar demographics. So our education is focused on the Class C and D market. Tuition per semester is around 15,000 pesos or 30,000 pesos for the year. But we do offer scholarships to more than half of our students. Yet despite that, we were able to see the strong bottom line. And this is because of the way that the education business has been able to manage costs, again, to keep that price point there so that it is accessible to our students. What makes it work is really a lot of the spending of education, a lot of the actions are really treated as a network. So it's really centralized with our head office here in Manila. That's things like marketing, academics, and then just rolled out at the local level. Longer term, in addition to the acquisitions, we're looking at improving the capacity in the schools. We do this really 2 ways. One is through CapEx of putting up new buildings on existing schools, but also looking at identifying potential campuses that the existing schools can expand to, so that we can, again, take advantage of that reach. I think another aspect that the schools have increased in capacity was really that shift towards distance learning or online learning. So we do have 2 models, one which is a hybrid system where students come to school, and another really which is remote. This is important for the market because the market that we serve prior to the pandemic could only attend their schools if the schools were at most 2 jeepney rides away from where they lived. Now that they are able to attend school remotely, it doesn't matter if they live in provinces that we don't have schools yet. They can still attend the PHINMA school, and the quality of education that they have will not suffer as a result of that. And we've continued to see that in our enrollment and in the results that we've shown. In terms of our construction materials group, we do expect government spending to increase in the second half, and we've already seen that so far in July and in August. We've also expanding the Davao terminal for PhilCement. This was something that our chairman, Ramon Del Rosario, talked about in a recent interview, where we're looking to expand our distribution network of cement in particular, because the part of cement is really being as close to our customers as we can be. That really reduces the distribution costs, that makes it convenient. And it's really important for our customers to be able to get their supply of cement or all construction materials when they need it and reliably at very accessible prices. In terms of Union Solar, PHINMA Solar, and Union Galvez Steel, we continue to look at new product lines that will improve the margins. One in particular, insulated panels. We're evaluating and likely to put up a factory in the first half of next year, which will provide 1 million square meters of insulated panels production, which is a business that, again, we think is high margin. These insulated panels will also help address some of the food shortages in the country. It's used for cold storage applications, which we also saw as important during the pandemic because of the need for storage for vaccines. And so that's really why we brought our expertise to bear in this particular market segment. In terms of shelter, we're seeing strong demand for low to mid-income housing, and this should boost sales. As Mr. Brian mentioned, we do expect to actively resell the canceled units that we had. And on the hotel side, every long weekend, you can really see how people are crowding the airports. It's harder and harder to make reservations in hotels. And we've been seeing that in the PHINMA hotels as well. We carry the master franchises for the Microtel by Wyndham and Trip by Wyndham chain. But moving forward, what we're more excited about is two parts on real estate. One, we're going into the township business. PHINMA Corp has agreed to invest 420 million pesos in PHINMA properties to set up the township division, with our first being in the Western Visayas. This gives us a larger land bank where we continue to make projects, but we also want to make these kinds of projects accessible in areas where maybe other developers aren't going yet, but areas where we continue to see strong economic growth. We're also looking at and evaluating how we can re-enter the socialized housing market because there is such a backlog there. In fact, President Marcos has said he wants to construct 1 million homes per year because, again, this is the market that probably needs homes the most, and this is an area that we know very well. In terms of our overall developments, we're expanding more outside of Metro Manila, areas, again, where we continue to see future growth. And in hotels, we actively look at areas where we can expand, where we might need hotels in the future, but we can also take advantage of synergies in terms of the townships we have by putting in either a Microtel or a Trip or even possible other brands that we're evaluating. At the bottom of the slide, it talks about a consolidation, and the consolidation that it refers to occurred in July of this year, where PHINMA Corporation bought the ownership of PHINMA Inc., our parent company, in PHINMA Education, in PHINMA Properties, and our hospitality businesses, so that it could increase the share of these businesses, improve our bottom line, but mainly because we really are optimistic that these businesses will continue to grow. We think that the portfolio is well positioned to grow both in terms of the top line as well as the net income. And we have that right revenue mix in terms of our portfolio so that we can continue to grow the PHINMA business and deploy capital where it's most needed. Having these businesses all under the listed entity will allow us to steer strategy and raise funds. But I think more than the more than the financial impact, or what will actually lead to more financial impact, is it really strengthens our ability to leverage the synergies across. And the synergies, yes, one of it would be, of course, an offtake for construction materials. But I think even more than that, it's sharing knowledge across the group. When you look at the footprint that Mr. Brion showed earlier, we're from the top of Luzon to the Visayas to Mindanao. We're everywhere. And our businesses are able to share, hey, this is what's happening in CDO. This is what's happening in Bacolod. Maybe you should do this. Maybe you should do that. The more our businesses continue to work together, we leverage on that group-wide knowledge bank, and we take advantage of it. And we find out other areas where the group can make a difference and make lives better. So yes, Mr. Brian mentioned earlier, we are more optimistic, especially in the longer term. We think we do have the right businesses, and we're going to continue to grow them in succeeding years.
Thank you, Mr. Brion and EJ. We are now opening the floor to questions from our audience. Again, please send any questions you might have through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So before we move on to the live questions, maybe we can start off with a few that we have received prior to the briefing. So yes, let's kick it off with PhilCement. So listed cement companies reported lower volumes during the first half of the year on account of subdued cement demand. Did PhilCement see the same industry dynamics? EJ, maybe you can take this one.
Sure, Kara. Yes, we did see the same dynamics as the industry, in the sense that the lower demand, not just here in the Philippines, but maybe within the region, caused what we think is a temporary oversupply situation that's backed up by the delayed government spending. But we are happy to note that our construction materials group was profitable in the first half of the year. And we continue to manage our costs to the extent that we can. We've been able to bring our cost of goods sold lower into the second half. We've reduced, again, our distribution costs, getting as close as we can to the market. But I think it's also important to note that we've continued to be close to our dealers, and we've continued to maintain those relationships so that when demand improves, they'll continue to stay with us. And so looking at that, we expect some recovery in the second half. If you look at the portfolio of not necessarily cement, but construction materials, in the first half, government spending was probably 10% of our sales. And so as that continues to pick up, we can see a larger impact in terms of our sales in the second half.
Thanks, EJ. So we have one question that was sent in. Could you expound on the equitized net loss due to cancellations? Mr. Brion or EJ, would you like to take this one?
Sir, you're still on mute.
Okay, let me try to address that. During the COVID times, people who have wanted to buy houses have found it difficult to sustain their ability to pay. And that's understandable. Many of the, I think all of the developers have experienced increased cancellation. And PHINMA Properties is not an exception. No? Our cancellations have historically been 10% or less, but it has since doubled last year and again this year. Last year, it set us back when we realized the cancellations at the end of the year. So rather than set back our profits by the end of the year, management decided to accelerate what they think might be canceled or forfeited as of June for the rest of the year. No? And so that's a total of about 380 million worth of sales with operating income of 149 million. Now, out of those units that were canceled, 77% of them have since been resold as of end of August. And therefore, in the month of August, PHINMA Property has been able to report income. They expect to continue to register monthly income up to the end of the year. And for the year, they should be doing at least the same, if not better, than the income that they made last year, despite the cancellations. And that is because of that early decision to call the cancellations. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, sir. So we've tackled PhilCement and properties. Now let's move on this time to education. So we have another advanced question that was sent in, which says, PHINMA education has seen a significant growth in enrollment over the past couple of years. Do you expect to replicate this trend in the coming years? Mr. Brion or EJ, I guess.
EJ should take it.
Well,
Okay,
I think Mr. Brion and I have the same answer. It's yes. But if the audience wants, I can expound. Again, the brand of PHINMA education is something that's becoming more well-known. In fact, during the pandemic, when a lot of schools saw significant enrollment drops, we only lost 10% in the first year. And from there on, we proceeded to have record enrollment. And I think that's because of the quality of education that we provide. The team is so dedicated towards how they can address the needs of the market that they continue to innovate in that space. And so we do see that brand equity. In fact, some students transferred from more expensive schools to the PHINMA education schools during the pandemic. And the results have been bearing out that even in a hybrid learning scenario, we're still able to get our students jobs. We're still able to see bar top-notchers. I think we've had more than 120 bar top-notchers since we started the education business, and more happening every year. We see stories of things like, for example, in Southwestern University in Cebu, we have a lot of foreign students that attend that for the health classes and health degrees. We had a 100% passing rate in the Nepalese medical board exam. And that's something that we're very proud of. So when you see things like that, you can see that the demand is there. And the challenge for PHINMA education is how do we meet that demand with supply? So as I mentioned, there's distance learning. You could see in the slides earlier the different CapEx that's being done, both in terms of increasing the school buildings, expanding to new campuses, regional expansion in the form of Indonesia, and looking out for other acquisitions that we might have that will continue to let us service the market that we're servicing. So that's the long answer to my yes.
Okay, thanks, EJ. So now let's move on to the PHINMA Corp level. So the question is, what are your plans to refinance debt maturities in the next 2 to 3 years? EJ, would you like to take this one as well?
Sure. Yeah, so we do have the corporate bond, and we were able to get a very good rate for it, 3.5335%. This was 2 years ago. And we've since been able to deploy the bond proceeds to our strategic business units to fuel their growth and enhance their efficiency, namely in construction materials and education. Now, that bond is set to mature next year, and we do anticipate issuing another bond, although we haven't ruled out other types of capital raising exercises, including possibly equity, depending on how the market situations are next year. But overall, we think we do have a good story to tell. We've safely or securely managed the investments that our shareholders and lenders have given us, and we've continued to use those funds to grow the businesses.
Thanks, EJ. We have one more question. Are there any new businesses or sectors that could become fresh investment outlets for PHINMA Corp? Mr. Brion or EJ, just feel free to jump in.
Let me just start it, and I'll ask EJ to complete it. The nature of business that we're looking at are businesses where we can give the Filipino a better chance to have access to a dignified life. And as you see, we're just in education, housing, and building materials, no? But you can think of a few more applications where this applies, no? So EJ, you can take it from there.
Yeah, as Mr. Brian said, we really want to make lives better. We want to be a force for good. So the industries that we would be evaluating are industries along those lines where we have the competitive advantages of the group, we have the management expertise of the group, where we think we can make a meaningful difference. So we do look, and we are looking at new industries to explore, but at the same time, also looking within our portfolio, there's many ways we can grow where we already are. And so those are the different things that we are trading off as we expand the company.
Thanks, EJ. Looks like we've addressed all the live questions and those that were sent in advance. Thank you again for sending your questions. If you have any other questions that you were not able to raise during this session, please feel free to send an email to Investor Relations. We will be flashing the contact details at the end of the program. But before we formally end, I'd like to invite Mr. Brion to give some closing remarks.
Thank you, Cara. PHINMA Corporation is in the business in the long run. In cement, back in the 80s and 90s, we dominated this industry in about 20 years. In education, we become the largest in about 17 years. And we still have a long way to go. There are about 6 million more students in the Philippines who cannot go to college. And that's really a challenge for us. And beyond the Philippines, we still have Indonesia, maybe other ASEAN countries as well. In housing, as you know, it's the much bruited figure is that there is 6 million backlog in housing. 3 million of those really refer to low to mid-income families who would like to have houses that they can afford. We plan to address that. So we are in businesses that we have very large and underserved markets, and we intend to be able to do that profitably. And we hope you can stay with us in the long run. Thank you for attending the briefing, and we hope to keep you updated on the progress of our businesses.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone.
So that's it for this afternoon's analyst briefing. Thank you to our speakers, Mr. Brion and EJ, and to everyone who joined us this afternoon. We hope to see you again in our next briefing.